the American dream, a house with a white picket fence. For many, this dream hinges on the construction industry. But what happens when that foundation is shaken? Donald Trump's mass deportation plan threatens to do just that. The construction industry relies on immigrant labor. Millions of undocumented workers contribute their skills to building our nation. Deport them? The consequences would be devastating. Labor shortages would cripple the industry. Projects would grind to a halt. The demand for housing would skyrocket, far outstripping supply. The administration argues American workers can fill the void. History tells a different story. Past deportations have consistently led to higher housing prices. The evidence is clear. Finding enough qualified American workers to replace deported immigrants is a pipe dream. The result? Soaring labor costs, and ultimately a crushing blow to affordable housing. Imagine this. The cost of building a home skyrockets. Materials become more expensive. Labor costs soar. This isn't a hypothetical scenario. This is the reality Trump's plan threatens to unleash. Tariffs on imports, a cornerstone of the administration's economic policy, would be disastrous for the housing market. The construction industry depends on imported materials. Tariffs inevitably lead to higher costs. These increased costs wouldn't be absorbed by the industry. They would be passed directly onto the consumer. Home buyers would face a brutal reality: rising prices and dwindling options. The dream of homeownership would slip further out of reach for millions of Americans. The issue of immigration has long divided the nation. Trump's mass deportation plan has only deepened the divide. Polls paint a complex picture. A significant portion of Americans, including some Democrats, express support for mass deportation. But dig a little deeper, and the picture becomes more nuanced. The reality is far from black and white. While some voters might voice support for mass deportation in the abstract, their views often soften when confronted with specific situations. They might support deportation in principle, but balk at the idea of separating families or upending the lives of those who have built lives in the US. This dissonance reveals a fundamental truth. Public opinion on immigration is rarely clear-cut. Many voters who support mass deportation also favor more compassionate policies. They support a pathway to citizenship for dreamers, undocumented immigrants brought to the US as children. They recognize the contributions of immigrants to American society. They understand that the issue is not about being pro-immigrant or anti-immigrant. Between the lines unpacking voter sentiment, the Pew Research Center, a nonpartisan think tank, has conducted extensive research on public attitudes towards immigration. Their findings underscore the complexity of the issue. While some Americans support mass deportation, they simultaneously endorse protections for specific immigrant groups. This apparent contradiction reveals a deeper truth. Many Americans make distinctions between different groups of immigrants. They might support deporting undocumented immigrants who have committed crimes while advocating for a pathway to citizenship for those who have lived in the US for years, paid taxes, and built lives here. They recognize that the circumstances surrounding an immigrant's arrival in the US matter. They understand that blanket policies like mass deportation fail to account for these nuances. This nuanced perspective presents an opportunity for policymakers. A call for balance towards humane immigration reform. The debate over mass deportation highlights a fundamental question. What kind of nation do we want to be? Do we want to be a nation that tears families apart? A nation that turns its back on those seeking a better life? Or do we want to be a nation that embraces its immigrant heritage? A nation that offers a hand up to those in need? The answer is clear. We must reject the cruelty and impracticality of mass deportation. We must embrace a more balanced and humane approach to immigration reform, an approach that combines enforcement with compassion, an approach that recognizes the contributions of immigrants while also addressing the concerns of those who support stricter immigration controls. This means securing our borders while also creating a pathway to citizenship for undocumented immigrants who meet certain criteria. It means reforming our legal immigration system to make it more efficient and accessible. It means addressing the root causes of migration, such as poverty and violence, in Central America. Above all, it means recognizing that immigrants are not the problem. They are an integral part of the fabric of American society. They are our neighbors, our colleagues, our friends. They are Americans, even if they lack the paperwork to prove it. We must treat them with the dignity and respect they deserve. The time for fear-mongering and division is over.